Hey guys, it's Frank again. The other night we were sitting there trying to set a static IP on Ubuntu 20. Had a little struggles with it, so I decided to go ahead and record a video in here. There are some mistakes in this video, and I did left them in there on purpose, mostly because these are mistakes that you actually may see in the field, and that way you can kind of learn and hopefully not make the same mistakes that I did. So thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something. So before we get started here, let's check what our IP address is, and we're going to do that with the IP address command. As you can see here, 192.168.51.2/24. The interface name is now changed to ENS33 in Ubuntu 20. So how did we get this IP address? It's probably DHCP. Let's find out by going to the etc netplan directory and do a quick ls here. We can see that there's only one file in there, and that's going to be a .yaml file. So let's do a head so we can look at it. So what we want to do to change the IP address to a static one is, of course, edit this file. There are a lot of editors out there, from VI to Nano. My own personal preference is going to actually be Sublime. The only problem with Sublime is that you have to install it. Sometimes you're not allowed to install it. So we're going to start off with Nano. Before I even get started though, best practice is say I should copy the file. So I'm simply going to copy the file to a .bac. And now I have two copies. That way I can always go back. If there's any changes, I make a mistake, I can always go back to the original file. And then to launch the editor, I simply type nano and then the file name. The editor now, and what I need to do is change the DHCP to a static IP address. If you look at the link below, the article below, it shows you how to do this here, so I'm going to go ahead and change this now. And what I'm going to do is change out or remove the DHCP and add the static IP address in that I want. As you can see here, it's 10.10.10.2/24. And I'm also going to change it to Google's DNS server, which is 8.8.8.8. Now with Nano, of course, you have to save the file, and I'm going to try to write to the file here, and you notice I get a permission denied. Why am I getting a permission denied? Those of you that answered, it's because I didn't elevate my privileges. You're absolutely correct, so I'm going to do that now. Do that with the sudo command, and we'll go ahead and put the addresses back in. Have you noticed I can go ahead and save the file? Usually what I like to do is double check to make sure that the file changes took. So I'm going to do head, file name, and you can see that the file is correct. Created the file, but I still need to apply it, so I have to do that with sudo netplan apply. And you can see that the file is not correct. The gateway's in the wrong spot, so I'm going to have to go back in and re-edit it a second time. The problem I'm having, of course, is that the gateway is not lined up under addresses, so I'm just going to fix that now by adding a few spaces. Save it again. Apply it, and this time you can see that it actually worked. I always like to double check my file, so I'm going to hit it again with head. And the moment of truth here, IP address, and I can see that the change actually took. So now we'll just try to test the connection. We're going to try to ping Google's DNS server. And if you look, we can't really sit there and ping anything. So what happened here is I started off with a server or a workstation with the 192.168.51.2 with a gateway of 192.168.51.1, and I'm going to change it. It was on a DHCP. I changed it to a static IP address of a 10 network. Now here's a problem here. Change this IP address. The problem now, though, is that the server is no longer on the same network as the gateway and can't get out. Worst part about this here is that if you were sitting there trying to remotely manage this thing here, and you change the IP address, right? If you're on a 192.168.51 network, you can no longer reach this box. You've just cut yourself off from this box. So you have to be very careful when setting up and changing IP addresses to manual. So that's editing with Nano. I'd like to take a few more minutes of your time and show you why I like editing with Sublime better. Bring up Sublime Text here. And I just found it in the App Store, by the way. Of course, we'll need to sit there and open the file again. What I like about Sublime is that it highlights things in different colors. Just makes it easier for me to see. Hopefully get stuff in the right spot. Make the same changes as I did before. How it highlighted the different colors and the different places here. Again, just to sit there and make sure that I can see it correctly. One of the reasons why I like Sublime is that it has line numbers here. So I can sit there and keep a count. In a small file like this, it's not that big of a deal. In larger files, you're going to find that this is very, very helpful. Files in Sublime is simple, just like Microsoft Word, just hit save. Now since I'm writing to the var directory, I do have to authenticate with a elevated privilege. Check my file, make sure that it took. And then remember I got to apply the file with the sudo netplan apply.
What we learned. With Ubuntu and other Linux systems, configuration is completed via editing a file. After editing the file, you need to reboot or apply the change with the command
sudo netplan apply.
When editing files, you need to elevate permissions if you plan to change the file. The best practice would be to back up the file before you make the change. Alignment of the commands is crucial with Linux, and even a few spaces can cause the file to not work.